Hello again, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Midwest Ag This Week. I'm Stu Ellis. I'll take care of the chores around here today. If you didn't get to the precision planting events, we'll show you some of their new technology. If you're fighting tar spot in your corn, we'll tell you what fungicides work best. We'll take you to a conservation project that helps control the water table in your fields and surprise you where there's some free nitrogen for your corn. That's right. Now, I've got to learn how to climb a power pole.
Welcome to Midwest Ag This Week with host Stu Ellis.
Well, Precision Planting invited thousands of farmers to dozens of live and virtual events in the last several days to unveil its new technology. This year, the focus was on sprayers, a recirculator to prevent having to purge air from the boom hoses, and electronic eyes that all over the machine that'll differentiate crop from weeds and ensure the sprayer stays off the row crop. That was the project of Jason Stoller.
We've developed a vision module that integrates in processing along with image detection. So what we do is we've got this vision module can be installed on a sprayer, and it has the ability real time to measure things like crop stand, things like weed pressure, and as well as crop or row detection for guidance.
Really, it's looking at everything in the field to what a farmer's interested in making money.
That's right. So in general, crop protection, until the day you spray, you actually have no knowledge of what's actually present. So the ability to have a vision module and to have vision technology that's on the sprayer, it unlocks that potential because we can actually now sense real-time characteristics about the crop as well as the weed pressure.
Okay, and then what all are we doing with that? We're not only spraying, we're also cultivating, and just a tremendous number of different things that allows the flexibility for it.
Right. So one of the first applications in terms of product concepts that we're applying the vision technology toward is row crop guidance. So any row crop with this vision module installed is able to detect where the row is actually at relative to the equipment that's being driven across. So now what we can do is we can actually take that vision system and we can apply that to improve on the actual guidance systems that exist today.
How does it do that?
So what it's doing is it's real time, it's measuring and determining where exactly is the crop row relative to the center of the machine. And then it's able to make adjustments to the machine control off of where the difference is or the cross-track error that exists between the actual row itself and where the expected center line of the row should be.
Farmers have been throwing a lot of fungicides at tar spot, trying to salvage their yield, but sometimes without any luck. A group of university colleagues have compared their research notes and have identified an A list of fungicides that provides the punch you need to help reduce tar spot.
Yeah, that's some new work that came out of this coalition of plant pathologists in the Midwest. So a couple of site years, there's quite a few data points in that data set. And what we learned just overall is that fungicide in general can reduce tar spots, but there are some products that are better than others. And you cite Veltima, Revitec, and Delaro Complete. Those seem to be the top three. And then there's a large, what I would call a B group in there that still give us good efficacy, but maybe not quite as good as those three particular products. But there's lots of options out there, especially things with 2- and 3-way modes of action in the jug.
Tell me a little bit about timing for if we're going to spend money on some of those, and they're pricey. What sort of timing is going to be best?
Yeah, it varies from year to year. We're learning that optimizing that timing is a moving target. Now, if we just sort of want to, have a window, a range of efficacious timings, it starts around the tassel time and runs through about R3. So that's kind of the window. But from one year to the next, the optimal timing can move inside that window. And in fact, in 2021, we learned that it was actually a V12 application followed up by an R2 application in Wisconsin that really maximized reductions. 2019, it was just a single tassel timing, and interestingly enough, in 2020, it was an R2 timing. So the optimal timing, again, can move in time, but the window of opportunity really is in that VT to kind of R3 window.
What's it going to be in 2022?
I wish I knew. I've been telling folks I don't have that crystal ball, but it's all going to come down to paying attention to the weather, especially as we approach the tassel timing. That's really what drives this epidemic, and if we keep an eye on that, and we're starting to see a lot of leaf wetness, especially extended periods of leaf wetness at night, that drives this epidemic. So we just got to pay attention and scout in the fields.
Scouting the fields today, you find cold temperatures.
Yeah, we've been wanting to watch those soil temperatures. The farmers that have not gotten any snow are really wanting the ground to freeze really deep, and so far that hasn't happened too much. You can see some differences in soil temperatures here, Stu. Peoria at 32.9 degrees with the 4-inch bare soil. They've got snow that's there. You go down to Champaign and Springfield where we haven't really had any snowpack. We're in the 20s there, so if we don't get the snow, maybe we get the cold temperatures to help ice things out. That's something I think a lot of farmers are looking forward to. Let's talk about the chance for snow. Speaking of, we really don't have too much here. There's a chance Sunday morning for a little light around north central and east central Illinois. We may get another chance at the front on Monday into Tuesday, a brief chance, and then at the end of the week, maybe some spotty snow showers here. I think the chance for snow, though, overall low here. And this is the next 7 to 10 days here. And you really see that the amounts aren't that high on the scale here in central Illinois and off to the north and east even. As we transition, so we do think there will be some changes to the pattern from this drier pattern we've had coming towards around the change at the turn of the month, end of January, beginning of February. The latest 8 to 14-day outlook does put above normal chances for precipitation as we go through January 28th through February 3rd. We will couple that, though, with likely warmer than normal temperatures. That may limit snow and maybe suggest it might be a chance for either rain or a rain-snow mix into the area. Of course, each system is different, but that's something that we need to watch here and see those changes as it comes along. I think February probably going to look a little more stormy into the region. Drought conditions, something else we look at here. Of course, some of those dry to moderate drought conditions in far northern Illinois. Not really a concern here, though, locally. So far, sometimes if we get some rain and snow here, Stu, that's something that we're going to watch and keep our eyes on. But the dry weather this month hasn't done too much damage for the drought monitor, I guess we could say here. Some farmers want some snow.
Some of that's going to come in. A lot of people are thinking that it could expand in this direction.
That is a concern, too. We'll wait and see. Perhaps that above normal chance will help. I will suggest, too, that drought condition to the west, drought begets drought, and so that's something we will have to watch.
Markets and more right after this.
Welcome back to Midwest Ag This Week.
Many of the new organizational policies adopted by Illinois Farm Bureau delegates last month were also adopted by the American Farm Bureau delegates last week. That means farm policies desired in Illinois will be pushed by the American Farm Bureau lobbyists in Washington in coming months.
American Farm Bureau just held its national convention a few days back. Illinois Farm Bureau, one of the major contributors to some of the policy discussions, and Mark Gebhardt's is head of governmental affairs for Illinois Farm Bureau. And you had several things that came out of Illinois that went into the new AFBF policy book.
We did, Stu. We had a very successful meeting, in my opinion. Our delegates were able to really summarize our policy submittals and get the majority of those into the AFBF, American Farm Bureau Federation policy book for the upcoming year. And I would really summarize those in kind of 4 areas. Number one, the upcoming 2023 Farm Bill. We had input from our membership that would like to see some changes, tweaks, if you will, to improve the bill as we enter into those negotiations. The second area had to do with livestock pricing. That by far was the biggest debated issue on the delegate floor, and we can talk a little bit about where that came out. The third area was an inclusion of a new policy around urban agriculture. And when we think about urban agriculture, I think a lot of times folks think about farmers markets and that sort of thing. It's really well beyond that. It's more about food processing and the food industry and how do we become more engaged in that area. And then the fourth area was one that certainly is an issue that's been of importance to our farmers here in central Illinois and throughout the state is how do we make sure that the NASS crop reports kind of are in sync, if you will, with the RMA FSA crop data. So what this policy submittal says is that we would support a third-party audit of the NASS crop reports as it looks at the RMA crop data. So NASS has really tried hard to work with us and to work with the farmers to ensure that accuracy and to make sure that things were being done the way they should be. So I don't, for any rhyme or reason, want to make it sound like there's a problem there, because there isn't, but this is just, again, another step, if you will, to ensure the confidence in the reports.
Okay, and a lot of farmers realize that this is just policy that Mark and his staff are going to be advocating in Washington.
Drainage contractors have had a great winter season for work at a time when farmers could afford to do some significant tiling projects. We visited with one of those just north of Oakwood that had utilized some cost share funding from Kellogg's and the Nature Conservancy. Lisa Lees, the administrative coordinator for the Vermilion County Soil and Water Conservation District.
They are very involved in working with farmers, focusing on the nutrient loss reduction strategy focus for the Gulf of Mexico, the Epoxia zone. And so they have different programs that are focusing on farmers and focusing on water quality and soil health and working in that direction.
One of her directors is landowner Kevin Green, whose fields are subject to ponding and yield loss.
The issues that we were trying to solve were flooding, ponding of certain areas of the fields, and maintaining the nutrients in the soil profile, and also controlling the water table management.
Okay. Had you suffered some yield losses because of those things?
Well, in the areas that traditionally flood out 6 years out of 10, yeah, we'd had no crops in those areas, so we hope to alleviate that problem.
The drainage contractor was Mark Shorts of Shorts Farm Drainage.
Yeah, we put in some inline drainage water structures from AgriDrain, and they have slide gates that he can manually raise the water table during certain times of year.
Okay. Those had some special funding for them.
Correct. So Kellogg's and the Nature Conservancy in this program offered to pay 100% of the installation of those structures for the project.
Farm operator Mark Forays says controlling the water table in the field has been simplified.
Mark, we've got one of these valves behind us. How do you work one of these?
From what I've been told, in the fall after harvest, you'll shut it off to conserve water coming out, and that'll keep the water flow about 6 inches below the soil surface, and also controls your nutrient runoff. And then in the spring, you open it back up again about 30 days ahead of planting so that you can dry the field out for planting.
Well, if you're riding the bean market, you've got your seatbelt on.
Oh boy, what a roller coaster. Volatility from day one there. We started out the week on a weak note, good production prospects of rain in the southern hemisphere. But when you look at that soybean chart from Tuesday's low to this high this week, we rallied 80 cents off that low. A lot of optimism came back into the market there midweek. We were looking at the Brazilian production numbers coming in a little lower. One analyst came in about 127 million metric tons. And that kind of going to bring a kink down in that chart from the standpoint that the trade was eager for big numbers to buy these beans cheaper. But with that production in question, and also sharply higher world vegetable oil markets, we finished this market on a high note there, Stu.
Oh, that's right. And Kurt Kimmel of Bates Commodities with us, where the question I've got to ask is a lot of farmers, how are farmers going to really protect themselves? What should they be doing in a market like this?
A lot of questions. We want to have our cake and eat it too. So what we've been doing is approaching it by putting in some price floors. Leave our upside open. We're in a situation here where we don't want to start selling a whole lot of new crop, not knowing how many acres or what type of production prospects we're going to have on this crop year. So you got to be flexible in your marketing with these commodity funds pushing this market around. And we're in a situation here where we don't want to sell too much too early, especially when we need these big bushels with big prices to help pay for those big input costs.
Now, you said put in price floors. Give me a real quick idea on what you mean.
Option volatility is kind of high, but the simplest way to do it is to come in and buy like a put. You can defend the downside on corn. You come in and buy like a 540 put. If the market goes down, the value of that option goes up. Same thing on beans. Come in and look at some $13 puts. That protects you. So if the market goes down, you've got some coverage. We've been doing some spread activity on these because the volatility is kind of high in through here, and it makes it a little bit more affordable. But the thing is, get down to a plan that you got some stability to stay in the marketplace.
Great. We appreciate Kurt Kimmel of Bates Commodities joining us once again. And there's a lot of things that you may want to visit with your commodity broker or your elevator about this right now. Free fertilizer, nitrogen. Hang on. Be right back. Well, nearly every corn grower is challenged with the price of nitrogen, which will break a lot of crop budgets this year. University of Illinois crop production specialist Emerson Nafziger is fully aware of the cost, but says farmers may not be aware of accounting for the nitrogen that's already in their cornfields.
This is something that people tend to forget about, but on average across hundreds of trials through central Illinois, we're able to estimate how much nitrogen comes from the soil because we have a yield estimate without nitrogen fertilizer. So we say if the crop yielded 125 bushel without nitrogen fertilizer, that means it took up about 125 pounds of nitrogen provided by the soil with no addition from fertilizer. And on average, through central Illinois, half of the nitrogen comes from fertilizer and half comes from the soil. And people think that's, when we based our nitrogen recommendations on expected yields or yield goal, that didn't really factor in. We've treated corn a little bit as if fertilizer is the only nitrogen it's ever going to get. If we were doing it in hydroponics, that would be true, but we're doing it in soil that has organic matter. Many of our deeper soils to 18 inches, 2 feet deep, there's some organic matter. And a small percentage of that organic matter is broken down by microbes every year, and it's made available, the nitrogen in it is made available to the crop. And so we've seen 200 plus bushels without nitrogen fertilizer in some rare cases. Sometimes it's very low. The big problem with that nitrogen that comes from the soil is that it's not predictable. So you have to run trials to know things like how much did the soil really provide.
How should a farmer set up a trial or a test strip or whatever to find out how much nitrogen his soil may be providing without added nitrogen? How would you go about testing that?
That's very simple. Turn the applicator off for just 30 feet of row, somewhere off the end row, and watch that where you didn't put any fertilizer on and see, first of all, how soon did it lose its green color.
Try that this year. We'll put on our hard hat and our climbing spikes right after this. Did you realize every house in rural Illinois is connected to each other? There's a very old web that's holding things together very well, dating back to the Depression days, and maintained by a modern cadre of folks who work around the clock with a very cooperative attitude.
As we look at Illinois associations and rural organizations, we're visiting with the Association of Illinois Electric Cooperatives. Dwayne Nolan is the executive director, and what is the Association of Illinois Electric Co-ops?
We are the statewide association for all the rural electric cooperatives in Illinois, and those cooperatives can be either distribution cooperatives, the utility that has the wires and poles that brings the power to your home or farm or business, or they could be cooperatives that generate and transmit. They have power plants, actually generate and transmit that power to your home or farm. So we have 29 in total, from Galena, clear south to Kentucky, from Paxton to Quincy. and we are the trade association that provides a full range of services. FDR created the REA. Anybody who's a little older knows this as the REA, Rural Electrification Administration. Today we're known more as an electric cooperative, but the old folks always talk, oh, you work for the REA.
That's right.
We were formed in 1936 as part of the FDR's New Deal, and we are arguably one of the most successful, longest running New Deal programs in existence. There are now electric cooperatives in 44 states. There are 900 small utilities like what we have in Illinois. Now, what's unique about us is we went where nobody else would go. The large for power utilities saw no profit in the rural areas because they didn't think farmers and rural people would use electricity. So they basically electrified the cities and the towns. And so your city cousins would have electricity in town, but the rural people did not. Hence the REA. FDR thought, to get out of depression, we got to raise up the rural areas, and we were formed. And so our mantra was to electrify the last house on that last mile. So we generally are where nobody else, in terms of Amerons, the ComEds, where they didn't want to go. We are a not-for-profit. We're a locally owned and controlled rural cooperative. Today, we don't even think about turning a light switch on. Young people have no idea that at one point you didn't have electricity. And so a lot of our cooperatives have now morphed into other obstacles. What are other challenges in the rural areas? And obviously, it's rural water. For a while, it was telephone, community, and today it's internet service.
We appreciate the visit with Dwayne Nolan, the head of the Association of Illinois Electric Co-ops.
And they're going to be having a school to teach new employees this spring. I can't wait to get up in a bucket truck with my camera on that one. Well, that concludes this edition of Midwest Ag This Week. We hope you benefited from some of the information you heard and saw. Share it with your farming colleagues. I'm Stu Ellis. Watch us again next week at this time.